Hello and welcome back to another episode of Great American Underdog, where we share stories of strength and success from real life underdogs. On today's episode, it's never too late to turn your life around and build success. We're going to be talking to a guest here who has overcome challenges and obstacles early in his life, has hung with the wrong crowd and maybe fell into a little bit of the negativity, made some mistakes, but then ultimately was able to turn that all around and build success in his life. He is a husband, father, an entrepreneur of two successful businesses, Farah Landscaping and Farah Nutrition. It's my honor to welcome Alex Farah. Alex, welcome. How are you?
What's going on? How we doing? Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you as well. So, I just want to jump right into it because I really feel like the audience that listens to this show is going to get a lot out of today's episode with you. You have a compelling story based on what I know about you since we've met, and what I know about you from getting ready for this episode. So, just to roll into it, talk to me a little bit about, where you're from, where'd you grow up, and maybe a little bit about those early moments in childhood with mom and dad.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Alex. I'm from Somerset County, New Jersey. Um, Lived in a, typical suburb, Franklin Township. There was some good sides to the town, some not so good sides to the town, but I had a pretty, safe environment, if you will. Um, I'm one of three children from my parents. I have two sisters. So I'm the middle child. Um, and the the main thing that I found growing up, one of the main things was that my father came from another country. So he was born and raised in Lebanon. Um, and he had a whole life there, and then war broke out. Whatever, 40 years ago, and he had some family come here beforehand. His uncle had moved here for work. He would tell us stories about him trying to leave the country, and to this day, I really can't find another story like it. He tried to sneak out. He tried to leave from a different border, from Syria, from Israel. He tried so many different ways to apply to leave the country. And his father stayed there. His father told him that he needs to get out of there or he's not going to make it. Basically. So, a long story short, he basically left Lebanon, went to Europe, and then from Europe went to and came to the States here. And that was in his late 20s, late or mid 20s. So, coming from having a whole life, he went to university there, and he was studying. He was a electrical engineer, right? Like he's got his whole plan set up there. World upside down. People are dying. He's got to get out of there. He probably spent, I think, 4 years trying to leave Lebanon. So that in and of itself, I can't explain the story as far as, anywhere near as good as he can, but, he made it here. And he moved in with my great uncle who has been in New Jersey, for, maybe 50 or 60 years now. He's an old timer.
It's incredible to me, Alex, how like in our parents' generation, the different types of things that they had to do in order to find success and just really more than success at times, just survive, right? Like get into an environment where they still had opportunity. I'm sure, he had to give up to some extent the pursuit of being an electrical engineer, at least out there, and then kind of have a question mark hanging over his head of what's going to happen when I do eventually make it to the United States. So, our parents a lot of times had to go through a lot more things than, the younger generation did today in terms of growing up and having to build resilience and courage and a lot more unknowns. They didn't have the internet. He couldn't He couldn't look into what it was going to be like when he moved here, just by, Googling, where to live in New Jersey. You just had to go on feel. It's crazy. So, I'm always very inspired by our parents' generation of how, especially somebody like your father, where he literally had to leave his home country and his family and move to an unknown place with no other information other than I just have to get out of where I'm at because I can't find success here anymore. So I'm curious for you, Alex, how did learning about your father's journey and also watching him as you grew up, learning about his journey from moving from Lebanon to the US, how did that shape your view of hard work and success from an early age?
Yeah. So I'll have to be honest, like at an early age, I didn't appreciate really that, I would say, at all. I just thought, oh, my dad's from Lebanon and we live in
Yeah.
New Jersey and I'm going to school and I'm dealing with, American, things, right? Like first world problems, quote unquote.
Right.
I'm not thinking about how he got there. He came over no English, right? He didn't know a lick of English and so I would say that childhood years, totally neglected it, took it for granted, would just say, because all my friends were here, all their families have been here for generations. So, it's like, it was really hard for me to try to really, uh, like appreciate and even like understand concepts that I know now that he has gone through, back then. So,
Sure.
yeah, it was definitely not something that I even thought of really back then.
Right. I ask because, in my life, my father was 82nd Airborne, taught Recondo School at Fort Bragg, taught ROTC cadets. So I kind of grew up in a no nonsense, non-negotiable household. And at times, knowing about his journey, if you watch the first episode of the podcast, I interview him. And I agree with you. I think a lot of times as a young kid and young teenager, young adult, you take that for granted. You don't really realize what they went through to give you the life that you had. So the appreciation part does come when you start making your own mistakes, but you have to, I think, go through those learning curves in order to look back and then go back to your parents and be like, "Thank you, and I'm sorry for any
Yeah,
any drama or headaches I caused you."
right,
Right?
right, exactly. Nail on the head. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm curious, when did the, I guess, turning point for you start to happen? Did you play sports in high school? Were you part of any teams of, where you guys had to build success together? Or did you start hanging around certain people that you were like, I don't see, let's see a future with these folks?
Yeah. Yeah. So, we played like little league sports growing up. Again, that was just kind of like for fun, right? And parents were supportive throughout it. They had split when I was like 8 years old, so that was a really tough time because that was a pretty uh, wasn't easy. I'll just leave it at that. But that also had an effect on us years afterwards, and still some things to this day. But anyway, so they were both in their own supportive of sports. They, I guess, thought it was, fun, constructive. Basically, when I got to high school, I was a big kid. And I was, I think, weighing in at 185 pounds freshman year of high school. And I was fat pretty much. I was maybe like 5'10" at the time, something around then, 185, not jacked, right? So
I was your
chunky
direct
kid.
opposite. I was 5'10" and 103 pounds, so I
Yeah.
don't know what's worse, man.
Right, right. Exactly. This, two ends of the spectrum there. Both,
Sure.
both need work, right?
Yep.
Um, But so anyway, I got and this goes along with my parents' hard work, right? So my mother was or she is a career realtor, right? So we got to go to a private school which is not in my town. It's a couple towns over, basically. So keep that in mind for for later in the conversation. But basically, when
Sure.
I got to this school, they saw my size, and I played football. So they saw my size. They said, "Okay, this kid, could be really good." So um, somehow, I played freshman year. I did pretty well. Was starting freshman. It was a fun time, but I got into the weight room before my freshman year. So the summer before freshman year, it was me and my friend Kevin and another kid, Dallas. We were in the weight room. And we're up against the seniors at the time. We're like, these are animals, right? These are huge men. And Theo Riddick at the time was at the school, so he was there. And I always saw him working hard. So anyway, it just kind of fell into it. I didn't really have like the conscious like the end in sight, but I was like, okay, I like lifting weights, sure, like I'll do that. Sometime in my freshman year, one of my coaches he grabbed me by the face mask. He said, "Farah, if you stay in the weight room, you're going to be an animal." I said, "Okay." Somehow that clicked for me and I became obsessed. So I was the kid lifting every single day. I didn't miss a single day. I ventured in lacrosse. I would lift before school, lift after school, and then go play lacrosse because I knew that lifting was more important for me than a second sport. So um, I have to thank my coaches for instilling in me, I think, my first experience of hard work. I had one weight room coach, Dennis Kiernan, who I still talk to this day. Um, he would not let us get away with any bullshit. He was, you're 5 minutes early. That means you're on time. You're on time. You're already late. Um, Picking up weights that you think that, like ego lifting right now, as we call it, picking up weights that you can't do properly, you know, put them down, pick up a lighter weight until you can, get to there. Right. Yeah, exactly. So he instilled in us a lot, especially me. I took away from it a lot of humility and dedication. I stayed with that same mantra lifting throughout the whole high school career. And it paid off because I was, strongest kid in the school and wasn't the fastest, right? But I was an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and I was, weight room obsessed. For
Yeah,
our
so you
senior
were
year,
pushing through people and getting to the backfield, man.
exactly that right. But that's what I like doing that. I was a big kid and I just really like doing that.
The muscles were the thing, and the strength were all the thing that happened on the outside externally. I'm curious, like, what do you think the biggest thing that happened on the internal to you was? Because you went through a transformation, right? You went through a transformation of having a little bit of humility, but also physically, and then that translated into your day to day. What do you think the biggest internal transformation for you was?
I think honestly and I'm sure you can appreciate it with the fitness aspect. Like you need to be consistent and you need to push yourself. So, I would walk out of the weight room and wring my shirt out every day. Every day I did it. And it was like an addiction. I said, let's do more weights, let's do harder sets. And so internally, like mentally, I knew that like you have to push and let's see what's next, right? I had a crazy squat, right? I had 695 on the squat rack. I said, I did that and I said, all right, let's do more. Let's push it harder. And I knew from the success of pushing and giving your all every day on a consistent basis in the weight room paid dividends because then you would be so much stronger. And then again, stronger for what? In the weight room, we were playing sports, stronger on the field. Nobody's pushing me around. That was the idea anyway. There was, of course, freaks that would, you know, uh, take me, but I
Yeah,
had
that happens,
substantial.
man. I mean, like, we
Yeah,
can't
right.
there's always
Uh,
even in boxing, like, there's always somebody bigger, more athletic.
Yep.
and somebody that's been doing it for a little bit longer, or just a different type of style, right? Like,
Yep.
for me in
Oh yeah.
boxing, I was able to bully people for a while after I started to build some skill, because at my weight class when I was younger, I was 132 pounds and 5'10", almost 5'11". So some of the guys
Wow.
that I would fight would be like 5'7", 5'8". So like I was a physically bigger 130, to 135 pounder. And then as I moved up in weight and I started to fight guys with more experience, when I lost diamond gloves in the semifinals to somebody that literally I tried to bulldog, and I did a good job for the first round and a half, and then I started to gas myself, and he still stayed with
Oh
his
man.
form, and he still continued to box, and then that led to me losing. So, it's such a great point of like, the consistent element of hard work and just go, go, go. But also, I always say, you got to be calm in a state of chaos, because the people that are going to be around you and as you move up are going to be able to do that, and then be able to use
Oh
their
yeah.
size or their whatever skills to get the better of you. But you got to give yourself your best shot, which is what you did by being in the weight room. I'm
For
curious
sure.
though, because just going back to mom real quick, what was it mom's work ethic, you think, to some extent, even at that age, that kind of influenced yours? Like just knowing that, did you realize that at that time when you were playing football?
I think honestly that I saw my mom's work ethic more somehow. Because maybe I could relate more. So
Right.
my mother was a realtor, right? And around 2008, the market crashed, and she was a
Yeah.
realtor, right? Parents are separated. They're sending us to private school. She, I remember reading. I don't know how I found these like letters in boxes in the attic of copies to the principals and asking for help, right? So I saw those like after high school. I was like, wow, like my parents really, really wanted me to go to this school. I had no idea about that until way after. Yeah. So she was always, always working, right? We moved around a bunch. We lived in different condos, townhomes. We stayed in a Marriott residence for like a few weeks. Like but still, she made it happen. She made sure that we were fed. She got us to school. So, and I knew that like, um, she's obviously still a realtor, but then she would start selling like solar panels. I'm like, I'm coming home from school. I'm like, what? You're selling like solar panels? And then she was, doing a lot of retail. She was managing like a loft or a women's clothing store, selling
Wow.
solar, selling real estate. Like she was always, always doing something to bring in income to make sure that we were set. And a lot of times she would put herself in large amounts of debt, I can assume, to pay for us. Basically, we had, we still had nice birthdays. We had Christmas, and we had all the nice things that little kids should have. She made sure that we had those.
Not only had them, but there was no outside pressure from her, like, "I'm doing this for you, and you better act right," kind of thing, as much as she just wanted you guys to be happy and didn't want you to know it even was going on, because there are a lot of families out there where, parents can throw that in their kid's face, like, "Look at what I did for you." And it puts pressure on the kids, where she was like, "I don't wanna put pressure on you. I just wanna make sure that you're taken care of," it sounds like.
Exactly, and that I think to this day is really cool because we knew that there was stuff going on, but she didn't, we didn't know about it, Yeah, so yeah, so that was pretty cool. I think I kind of saw that more than my father's whole experience, So I think my father was more so like what you just said. He said, look what I did for you. Look what I made for you. You better listen to me and da 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 XYZ. You better, get good grades and whatever, which, I don't blame him, but, so I think I had both ends of the spectrum on that. Um, Me and my two sisters did. So,
Sure. And two sisters, so one younger, one older, and your middle child.
yep. Yes,
That
sir.
must that must have been fun to
Yeah.
some
Oh,
extent.
yeah.
So talk to me a little bit now, Alex, about you transition out of high school, we're going to college, and I know that from what you told me offline, priorities weren't school at first, and I can tell you just, there's been some parallels already just listening to your story. Like it was the same for me. Like it wasn't necessarily that I was a bad student. I didn't I didn't pursue being a lifelong learner the way I do now. And I didn't view school and an education the same way. So, like, even though I went to college, because my dad said, listen, you're going to college, you're getting a degree. My parents both did not do that. So, me and my sister, he was like, this is the reason that I moved you from Brooklyn, New York to New Jersey, was so that way you can go to a good school and get a degree. So, when I went to college, I just wasn't into it. I kind of felt like a little bit of pressure. So I understand like at first not having the priorities in line. So I'm just curious, what it started off that way for you? Like where were you gravitating towards? And then eventually, when did you decide to turn things around?
So I'll try to sum it up. Cause I've told this story, many times to many different people, in different contexts. So, um, parallel with my lifting, right? Of course, I'm a teenage kid and I want to have fun. So started hanging out with kids who were smoking weed, chewing tobacco, drinking, things like that. And, um, that was kind of like fun for me, right? I still never, decommitted from the weight room and football, because that nothing else beat that for me. But every high school kid experiments, has fun, or at least a lot of them, right? Um, so basically, after high school, I'm still hanging out with these same people, and I went out to Wilkes University, right after high school. Now, again, not being able to be appreciative of it back then. Wow, look at this, an opportunity. You're at a college, you're playing D3 football. I went into that weight room. I was pushing, more weights than the majority of those kids that were there. Again, not the speed, but for my position, you got to be a big dude pushing a lot of heavy weights. So the downfall, I think, was I was still hanging out, doing stupid shit. Uh, I found those kinds of people at Wilkes, right? And we kind of just did that. I think I maybe took it to the extreme, but it's like trying to parallel the two time frames. When I got to Wilkes, for some reason, that my motivation dropped significantly. And I really can't figure out what the determining factor was, to this day. But for some reason, I just couldn't get my head out of my ass. I remember I had a coach tell me, and I have not seen him since I was at Wilkes. I would love to see him one day. He told me, and it's a classic saying, but I never heard it before. He said, Farah, um, I can only help you so much until you help yourself. And that stuck with me. And, so that year at Wilkes, I spent 1 year there. It was basically a uphill climb. I got to Wilkes and then a steep drop off. In terms of motivation and work ethic, I didn't go to classes. I was just straight up screwing around, getting in trouble. And, I had zero priorities basically except having fun. It comes to the next, that spring, I was told that because my GPA was so low that I couldn't receive financial aid. And again, my parents didn't pay for me to go to school. They, maybe a little bit, with like deposits or down payments or something like that. but I took out loans to go to the school. And they told me I couldn't go back or I couldn't get my aid back because of my grades are so low. So at that time, I wasn't really speaking to my father. He kind of knew some of the stuff I was doing. He was a hard ass, and I just kind of stayed away from him and lived with my mom. Um, and that was a cool time for us, because we were uh, more like friends, kind of, than a mother and son.
So
Um,
was the biggest concern with dad was that dad was gonna put the pressure on you about things?
Yeah, like I mean, he would yell and scream and we would fight all the
Sure,
time. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were, I mean, nose to nose many times, and
sure, sure.
again, I can understand his viewpoint, but at the time I was like, screw off. And,
Yeah, so
uh,
he was pissed. So you were like, I'm not going anywhere near that while he's this pissed off. I'm not giving him a reason to get in my face anymore at all.
exactly. 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 So I literally just like ran, quote unquote, ran away from him. I just stayed with my mom. So I'm after that first year of college, and I'm figuring out what I got to do. I was trying to apply to another school, Kane University, and I talked to their coach, and the same thing. Couldn't get aid.
Wow.
I needed to get my grades up before I did anything. So I enrolled at RBCC. I think I signed up for 4 classes, and that was a whole different world for me. I'm like, who are these people? This is a whole new, and I had to make money. So I one of my high school friends, his father owned a company called Lawn Doctor. He owned a franchise,
Uh,
Green Thumbs. So I signed up for school and I started working for him. I was still carrying about 290 pounds, and at that time I stopped lifting, so I was back to pretty fat. And I would work all day, um, and I would um, go to school at night. So working all day outside in the green industry, I think I lost 92 pounds in 9 months. So it was pretty it was a pretty extravagant weight loss, and I'm really not too sure how persevered through that. Working all day, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then running from um 5 p.m. taking classes at night. I was failing miserable. So um the school part was kind of just like, okay, I have to go back to school, right? So I was working all day, focusing on my health and fitness. At that point, doing this weight loss, working 6 days a week, 12 plus hour days, and then trying to go to school, I just literally didn't have time to hang out with anybody. So from hanging out with the wrong kids or the whatever, wrong kids is a loose term, but at, end of high school at Wilkes, coming back home, I just cut basically everybody out because I said, I need to work and make money and try to get back into school. So people were like, oh, you're back in town. I just literally ignored people, blocked people. I said, I just said, don't have the energy. I have to wake up at, 5 in the morning here. So I think that was honestly, I mean, all of this was a higher, God's plan, I believe, for sure. But um, for sure. But specifically that, just not even having the energy to do it.
Let me ask you a question. When God's plan, like my wife always says, everything's always working out for us, right? And that things do happen for a reason. So, was there specific moments where you felt like when people were reaching out, you're back in town, let's hang out. Were there specific moments that you were like you felt it inside of you that it just wasn't for you anymore? You know, and you look back now and you're like, wow, that happened for a reason. There was purpose to that, and it was out of my control, and it was kind of the universe saying, "Hey, wake the fuck up, and you're on the right path."
Yeah. So that's honestly like a whole story in itself. So, um, I don't think I necessarily noticed it at the time. Um, but but coming back and working, so I went to a Catholic high school, and we have a theology class. One of my theology teachers was a younger woman, very cool, always kind of like would talk to me on the side, like, how you doing today? You know, like random stuff like that. So during this time where I'm working full time and going to school, something called me to go reach out to her and go see her. So I went back to my high school and sat down with her for probably 3.5 hours and just
Wow.
talked to her. Um, I told her everything that was going on, like no filter at all. Um, and you know, uh she was taken back, I guess. And from that point, I met her, I don't know, a few other times, same thing. And I would tell her experiences that I would have on any given day, like with the example you just said. Somebody reaches out to me that wants to go have a drink or go smoke or something like that. And what you just said, like I would have not the best feeling about it, so I just wouldn't. On another example would be a point in time where I see an opportunity to help somebody, even if it's like the smallest
Right.
thing. I would notice those moments, and I would try to act on those. So she helped me understand more so, like in the Bible, there's certain scriptures that are like when she was telling me these things, I said, "This just happened to me." Like verbatim, like at perfect alignment, well, with something that was happening going on. I said, that's, you know, whether that's, you know, me assuming or whatever, you know, we can go into all that, but like no doubt in my mind, that's like some of the Bible verses and some of the saints that she was explaining to me, like that's what I was experiencing. So at that point I was committed, right, to getting better. So I still stayed in touch with her, would bounce ideas off of her here and there. So I'm still a lawn doctor. I stopped trying to take 4 classes. I just took, it was either 1 or 2 classes. I said, I can't do it. I'm getting D's and C's. I need to get A's, right? So once I did that, um, I, I got an A in my first class, I think like ever, right? And I said to myself, wow, that wasn't so bad. Like I could fucking do this. Like I can get A's, right? So I started taking 1 class, then 2 classes. As my grades were going up, I knew I was done at lawn doctor. Basically, I said, this guy, I asked him for a raise. I was like trying to be the best employee for him, crushing lawns. I asked for a decent raise. He told me, he said, in his big office, right? He said, he chuckled when I asked. I was getting $11 an hour. I asked for 16. I knew this other douchebag next to me was getting 16 or 17, and I was producing more than him. I knew he had a family tie or something, whatever. He was there longer than me. I just felt it wasn't right. I asked him for 16. He basically laughed and said, "You're lucky if you get a 50-cent raise." I said, okay, mind blown. I think, I don't know, a couple weeks later, I told him, I said, I'm done. I said, here's my 2 weeks, basically. I wrote letters, though, handwritten letters to all the other people in their office, because one of them to this day is still one of my very best friends. Um, all these people are 20, 30 years older than me. This one gentleman took me under his wing, showed me how to work, showed me how to run the gambit of the work. And again, to this day, we're still friends. But I wrote letters. I said, thank you for your time and your teaching. And I'm off. So at that time, still living with my mother. I'm getting A's now at RBCC. I applied to Rutgers and got denied. because I wasn't there yet. So I went back to Immaculata High School, which is my high school. And at this time, I lost all that weight. I was shredded. I was maybe 215, 220 pounds. I was hitting the gym every day. I felt like a gazelle. I went back to the school and they offered me a job as a weight room coach and a freshman defensive coordinator. So that was pretty fun. I did that. That was a whole learning experience in itself. I got to coach with my coaches that instilled all that hard work in me. I felt great about teaching the kid. It was such a really eye-opening experience for me. Also at the time I was I played a year of semi-pro football. So my whole life was just exercise. I was playing semi-pro. I was coaching. I was living at home, eating as much food as I wanted. So I was really in tip-top shape. I started working at Crunch Fitness as a trainer. I got my certification online. Started training clients, because I stopped working, right? And coaching barely paid. So that's how I was making money. I did this whole thing for basically about a year. I finally got into Rutgers. One of my dad's old clients, very sweet lady, she's passed now. She helped me write a letter basically to get into Rutgers. At this point, I brought my GPA up, above a 3.0, which took forever. But I didn't even finish my quote unquote associates at RVCC because I had just a bunch of courses. I said, I got to get the hell out of here. I got to move to the next thing. I wanted to go study exercise science because that's all I was doing was training people playing football. I didn't get into that school, but what the school I got into was the labor or management and labor relations at Rutgers. I said, hell yeah, amazing. Got into Rutgers.
I'm here. I made it.
Um,
Yeah.
Now I said, okay, I made it. I don't care what school I'm in. I
Give me the
freaking made it.
opportunity now.
Uh, exactly. So I said, foot's in the door. I left coaching. I still trained. I trained at a couple other gyms, trying to, bring in income. I reached out to one of my preschool friends because we stayed in touch and he was living at Rutgers and needed a roommate. Boom, moved right in. I was at a house in New Brunswick.
I grew up in East Brunswick, Alex, so I was right down the road. And, I had a lot of friends that went to Rutgers as well. But as you're talking, like, they're so funny. Like, the one thing that I'm noticing that's sticking out is, how you went from, hanging with the wrong crowd and not necessarily, doing the right things. You built these habits before, you started, quote, unquote, "failing" in college, right? Because I think it started in the weight room in high school for you, where, kind of got addicted to you got addicted to the transformation, and also you developed a consistency in your life in terms of the way you thought about your own performance because of athletics. And then, Dr. Wayne Dyer says this so well. He says, when you start to change the things in your life starts to change. So, that specifically is your thoughts, in my opinion. So your thoughts, I think, about yourself said, "Hey, I've driven myself to do things other people can't do." 695 squat in the gym, for example. Nobody was probably touching that number in high school like you were. All these other things that you saw, I'm I could be here and I'm keeping myself down here through my own actions. So I'm curious, like, just as a quick aside, for the people that are out there that might feel like they made too many mistakes or, are having trouble removing the negativity in their lives, like, what would be the advice you would give to those people that might be saying to themselves, "Hey, I know I'm capable of this, but I'm here. How do I get to here?"
I think there's a couple ways to go about it. First and foremost, I think you have to find some kind of passion, some kind of hobby, some kind of task that you can be consistent and win little battles every day, every week, every month. The gym is a phenomenal option playing music, learning to play guitar, the piano, or drawing, or any biking, skateboarding, anything that you think that you can find and do and be consistent, even while you're hanging out with people, you're going to want to be, um, you're going to want to get better at something that you're passionate about. So, for example, at the time I was, passionate. I kind of had to work, right? So I had to stop hanging out with these people. But after I went through that, I'm like, okay, I really want to get better at whatever XYZ. I want to really get better at, like my grades. I want to get better at coaching or being fit and coaching clients. So I think that's one starting point that people can find, is find something that a small task that you can just win every day, small little battles. I think that would go a long way in achieving some sort of victories, right? I know Dave Ramsey, financial world. He talks about the snowball effect of, you have all this crumbling debt. He said, pay off the little one, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one, then you get addicted to it. I really like that.
I think that also works. Like, I'm not sure if you've ever read Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, but it's literally the same concept. So he literally talks about, all the little wins every day add up over time. And the best analogy I can put to you is this: like, if an airplane is set to take off from New York to San Francisco, but it's 1 degree to the left or 1 degree to the right, if it's 1 degree to the left, it actually ends up somewhere in Texas. And if it's 1 degree to the right, you're closer to the left by a degree. So, like, again, and I think that it works. That example is like in the negative, right? So, like, if things are compounding negatively in your life, you're going to start to go down that road. And I think for you, you realized at some point that you were like, "Hey, I'm going down this worse road, and I don't belong here." Like, you felt it in your gut and trusted your gut, and that made you go back to your high school teacher and have a freaking conversation. And these eye-opening little things, like even the little quotes that you've mentioned from your coaches, like, that stuck with you. Somewhere they stay inside of you, and it's hard to do bad things for yourself that are hurting you alone. And when these things, and you're just like, I know these are real and I know that they're true because I've experienced them. So now let's just say, moving forward, you can't keep going down that road. So you're at Rutgers, you get into this school. It wasn't the one you wanted, but you saw that as an opportunity to still be at Rutgers and chase your next level. It was the next level change. So I'm curious now, you start finding success at Rutgers and holding multiple jobs. Tell me a little bit about that. And then ultimately you graduate Dean's List. So, that's so incredible, man.
Yeah, so I had my living arrangement good, right? And I knew that, I mean, my friends love to party, and not sure I would drink occasionally, but that wasn't my passion, right? I was coaching my own clients where I was living. I had a gym basically. I bought some equipment, some used equipment. So I was training people out of there, making money. I was training at Crunch Fitness. I was training people at Retro Fitness, Metro Fitness. There was a bunch of places I would be meeting people on the field. So I still love doing that, right? My cousin, loose term cousin from Lebanon, his his father um, sent him here basically, and he bought a restaurant that my dad basically forced me. He's like, you should really go talk to your cousin. He's your age. He's running this restaurant. You should go help him. So I did. I went there. I was making menu options. I was hiring people, firing people. I was ordering from like US Foods and making sure we had inventory and stock. And I mean, I was running his business for some time. My friend, one of those friends, he's still one of my best friends, from the weight room
Lost
going
you,
into
bro.
freshman year. He was at Rutgers at the time, killing it, played D1 lacrosse. I mean, he had his shit together. But he was working at a bar called Old Queen's Tavern, and I'm sure it's it's familiar to
It's
you and a
fun,
lot of
man.
other folks. So he got me in there basically, which was literally directly catty corner across the street from the restaurant that I was managing. So I bounced there, bartended there. I was there for probably 3 years until I graduated. I said, I'm going to fucking crush these classes. I'm going to figure it out. I already had the mindset that I knew I could do it. All my peers, 95% of the kids in class were kids. They were right out of high school. They were me,
I'm
right?
living
In
here again.
a different experience. But I came in, I said, this is a freaking job, man. I'm going to get A's. I gotta do this. I was making money, so I was living comfortably, paying bills. I said, I just need
Shit.
to uh, continue this. I said, okay, how many courses do I have left? Without a final
You
determination of
with
what
me?
I wanted to do at the end. So that was basically, I think, 2.5 years. I was at Rutgers doing this, working these jobs, um, you know, doing all
Phone's
that
fighting you.
basically.
I
I
think you're
had
there.
in the school that I was in, they had
Eh,
entrepreneurship classes
No worries,
available.
man.
So I was taking those, and um, I knew landscaping was something that I could fall back on. That's what my father does. And I worked for him, all the summers growing up and everything like that. So I'm planning, right? So now I'm planning, what am I going to do after I graduate? So there was like 2 semesters left. Uh, I got an opportunity to work at Truck National Golf Course as just a groundsman, right? Somebody my mother was with gave me the opportunity. And in that moment, that this could be a really good thing for me. While I was at Rutgers, they have a big landscape agricultural uh, school, Cook College.
Yeah.
So I got my pesticide license there. I took my safety courses. I took courses to get my pesticide license because that's what I was doing at Lawn Doctor. So I got that. Uh, I I said, let's just create a business. So uh, my dad was working with somebody. Yeah, really. Honestly, like I was just at that point, I knew what I wanted to do. I just had to I was like, okay, now I need to actually make a
Act on
business.
it.
So nothing about it, knew nothing about it other than the classes at Rutgers. Um, so while I was in Rutgers, the last semester, I took all entrepreneurship classes, and I was building my business, setting it up, I should say, setting up my business while I was in school. So everything that they were teaching, I was literally putting into practice because I would take all night classes so I could work all day and be out doing stuff. So uh, I made the
You were literally
LLC.
flying the plane
I
and
got the
building it at the same
logo.
time.
Say that?
I said you were literally
What do you
building
say?
the plane and flying it at the same time.
Exactly. Literally, exactly what I was doing. Yeah, basically,
And
I set up the business so it was legit. So when I graduated, I would have something ready to rock. I handed out business cards. I went door to door knocking again during the days in night classes. I went and found a cheap beat up truck, which I still have,
well,
95 F-150, had like 200 and some thousand miles on it.
it's old reliable. You're not
I
allowed to get rid of that one.
exactly. I know. Um, So yeah, I basically got like 4 clients that I knew I could do fertilizer for. For Christmas, I asked that year for a push spreader. So I got a Let's Go push spreader. It was like $450. And that was really all I needed tool wise for fertilizing. So got the business registered, LLC, I didn't have like QuickBooks or anything like that. It was just all just legit. Got insurance. And then, yes, I did graduate, Dean's List. I was thrilled about it. It was humbling because I went from, I think I had a 1.7 GPA at Wilkes, a
Yeah.
1.7. And then if anybody who's gone and has had GPAs before, you know how much work that takes to bring your GPA up a couple points. So um,
I went through something
that I
very
knew.
in a short story, Alex, I went through something very similar where I went to DeVry University out of high school, flunked out because I didn't care about the school, had no connection to it, and then decided to transfer my credits to
Wow,
Brookdale Community College. Yeah, because they also weren't accredited in accounting, and I
wow,
was in at the time. Went to Brookdale Community College, graduated there with a 1.9 with my batch time off for boxing.
wow,
I was serving in the I was also in the hospitality industry, waiting and bartending, and then I wanted to go back to finish my
wow,
bachelor's, and I applied to West Virginia University. I applied to South Carolina. I applied to Arizona State, and I only got into WVU. And I remember reading the acceptance letter in the bathroom of
wow,
Chipotle and Ravello, crying my eyes out, like I can't believe I freaking made it in. And then I graduated from West Virginia with a bunch of people that were coming in younger, that were old me and flunking out, and I
yep,
was just on a mission.
yep.
So, you sound like you just became this very mission driven person. And there was that point in your life where you said, I'm not taking this road anymore. You turned it around. And I'm curious for the people out there as we're rounding out the conversation here, Alex. I'm curious, you start your business because at this point you were like, I realize I don't want to be an employee. So I want to do my own thing, but I think people are scared to do that. Like there's that fear of what if it doesn't work? Where do what business do I start? Like, what would be the key piece of advice you would give to someone who's starting that entrepreneurial journey? If they want to go from employee to becoming an entrepreneur, like what's the one thing that they can do to start that?
It's really tough to try to narrow it down to one thing. I
Okay.
would say if you're curious, if you're struggling to find something, um, I worked at a company. I think most people who have, especially in my industry, construction, green industry, if you work for a company, I mean, this could apply to any kind. If you're working for a company, a successful company, and you see how it's run, and you spend time there learning the systems, you can then take that and start your own because you understand that and critique it to how you want to run your business. So I think that without having that lawn doctor experience, I don't know if I would have the same like business morals, business etiquette in um, as far as taking the somewhere where you're making say $500 a week and you're doing stuff on the side. I feel once you break $500 doing stuff on the side, you're there. Take the leap because if you can manage to make your salary what you're spending all this time and energy working for somebody else, if you're making that much money after working for somebody else that making that same money, if you can make that money as a side hustle, imagine what you can do
Right.
if that's your full-time. I remember when I was finishing school, I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't have to finish work to go to class. I can work the whole day. The whole day, I don't have to go to class." I said, "Wow, this is amazing." And then just off to the races.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about, also living the entrepreneurial life is that not only forget about making your own schedule and having time freedom, it's what you do with that time, right? Like, are you spending the time, energy, effort in your own personal, professional development? And then on top of that, if you already know that you can make a buck outside of your job, and like you said, just go for it, burn the boats and move into it. There's three different ways, Jay Abraham, if you know who that is. If not, look him up. But three different ways that you can grow your business. You can either increase the amount of clients you have, increase the frequency that they do business with you, or increase your profit margin. So at a certain point, like you said, hey, I got four people here. That means that I can get four more people to do fertilizer. That means I can now start creating other offers and opportunities for people to do business with me. So you're 100% right, Alex, in the way of just get started. I think is the one thing that they could take away from that. That I would say is the biggest piece of advice, and just lean into it. Alex, as we're rounding out our conversation, I'm so glad that you were able to take the time to be here with me today. Talk to me a little bit about as we close out, looking back at some of the challenges that you've overcome in your own journey. What do you think the number one thing, or a couple different things that you hope people will learn from learning about your journey?
If I If I had to pick something, I would 100% focus on when you see an opportunity to act on, whether it be a door opening, some kind of connection. If you get that gut sense of like you feel drawn towards this, that gives you a good feeling that in with your brain makes sense, would be a like a smart venture, a smart idea, or a good thing to do. I think you got to follow that gut feeling. There was many times where I had so nervous, just getting started with business. I said, "Oh man, do I really do this?" Like buying equipment, for example. Oh man, can I really spend this kind of money on a piece of equipment? I knew in my gut that I had an opportunity to purchase this piece of equipment. I knew I had a good understanding of what it could do for us. The only thing that would hold you back is you being, nervous or afraid of not being able to, make payments, or not being able to, succeed with, again, just this example, this piece of equipment. If you have that gut feeling and you know deep down that you can achieve and you have achieved things in the past, I don't think any specific channel is much different than the other. I think if you want to lose 100 pounds and you're, severely overweight, and you find an opportunity, you can go to a gym, you can eat right, you follow that, the same aspect as if a job opens up that you have prepared for, not directly, but you can do this task. You can buy this piece of equipment and run it and make money. I think that you really have to look for it. You have to be open to seeing these opportunities um, walk in your way, and without having the past, I don't think that I would be where I am now, because I wouldn't be able to understand and appreciate the opportunities. Working for myself. So I always say I was slave for myself for the first like 4 years of, my business. I didn't just have all this money paying employees. I worked for myself, long, crazy, crazy jobs, learning, um, how to actually make money and build a business and build a community that people come to. But without having those struggles, without having the understanding that there's nobody that's going to defeat me, I have to pursue this. This is again, mission driven. Like I will not fail. If you can develop some kind of aspect of that, I think that you can succeed in anything. You said it before, from my story from weightlifting. If I knew that I kept working out and kept lifting, I would be the strongest person on that field. It
Right.
didn't start, with benching 225 pounds. I started, at the bottom. You make small wins, small consistencies that add up to, big wins over time. And setting up and being, um, I love the quote. It says, luck is, the meeting between preparation and opportunity. I think that makes so much sense. If you prepare, you do honest to yourself, your friends, your family, you're being um, as good of a person as you can. You do your quote unquote homework. You prepare as much as you can. When the time is right, I firmly believe that you will be handed an opportunity, and you have to be aware of that and to see it and seize it. I will bring in my nutrition business right now, if you don't mind. Just this, just this morning. So we developed a product, basically hydration, muscle recovery, joint support. I wanted to make it for people who work construction outdoors, because there was nothing for us out there. Again, with my
So
passion for my passion for fitness, I understand the science of everything. I have sports and exercise nutrition certifications. I've been doing it my whole life. Well, my whole adult life, I would say. Um, just this morning. So I'm trying to hustle and start a business, right? I dumped a decent amount of money into getting all this started. There's some tweaks that need to be made, but my goal is to get it in the hands of contractors. We use a company in my landscape company called Block. They're a manufacturer that makes paver products, retaining walls, things like that. I'm been I've been working with them, right? Just our local sales rep for the past few years, developed a relationship, right? Never I'm thinking I'm getting this phone call this morning. Never. Been doing all of that. Being nice, being friendly, open to suggestions of just the hardscaping. I got a call from Block headquarters out of Canada this morning saying that they want me to send them my product so that they can direct their film with my product, being a vendor partner with them, and have this be showcased to all of their hardscape showcases across the country in 2025 next year. If I didn't have this relationship with this Block gentleman, if I didn't do good work, if I didn't prepare and have a mission and have um, a really solid base that no, this is a mission. I need this to get into hands of contractors. It's a good thing for them. I know it could be an opportunity to, succeed and have a life that me, my wife, and my son, want to be
Right.
able to afford and pay our bills. This is an opportunity that a prime example. What are the chances that I get this phone call right now? If I didn't persevere and dedicate my time into making the product, pushing time frames, and developing alongside all of this, my landscaping connection with this gentleman, it wouldn't have happened. So,
Well, that's where you go back to saying, luck is the culmination of, opportunity and preparedness. And the other thing that I wanna mention on what you just said is the people element. I often say, because I have an automotive background as well, where, I used to always say, "We're not in the car industry, we're in the people industry," and I didn't coin that. I got it from other people that I've had as mentors in the automotive industry, and at the end of the
mhm,
day, we're all in the people industry, and we're all in the relationship business. So, you have to be able to care about the end result that you're trying to create for your clients. And then ultimately,
mhm,
you just have to care about your products serving them in a way that they're not currently being served. And like you said, there was nothing out there uh, for contractors in terms of hydration and muscle support who are working outside all day or anybody in a labor type of role, which is why I think that when you have a company like you just said that reached out to you from Canada, they want to be able to buy into you because they see the same hole out there as you do and how many people that it could potentially help. So at the end of the day, we're in the people industry. And I think that you have to you specifically and any successful entrepreneur really has that at the heart of what they do. So, I think that that's such a valuable lesson as we wrap up here, Alex. Where can people find Farah Landscaping and Farah Nutrition if they're interested in learning more?
landscape design. The nutrition is Farah Nutrition. .com, and the Instagram is the same. It's Farah Nutrition. So I'm sorry about all this cutting in and out. As you would figure, business owners got. I'm sitting in my truck right now. Got at the yard.
Alex, it's all good, my man, because we're gonna do this again because I still think that there's more to unpack on the entrepreneurial side, and people for being able to get the most out of what they want in their life and achieve the life they're looking for, as well as being able to overcome those obstacles and hurdles that might be preventing them from getting there. And there's tons of things that you've learned as an entrepreneur now, with two successful businesses on how to get to that point, right? So I think that the next time we do this, we'll do this in person. And lastly, as we close out here, any last takeaways for the audience?
I just want to say thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity. You have an awesome channel, very inspiring people on there. I would say keep doing what you're doing. There's not too many people that have your niche here, and I love it. For people who are trying to start their own journey, don't be afraid. Listen to your gut and get after it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. And I know everybody listening will as well. This has been another incredible episode of Great American Underdog, where you can find stories of strength and success from real actual people who have written their own underdog story. I'm Ron Marvo. Thank you for joining us, and Alex Farah from Farah Landscaping and Farah Nutrition. And we're out. We'll see you on the next one.